Welcome to the World History 1 lecture series. At the end of each slide there will be a 10-second delay. Use this time to pause the presentation and complete your notes. When you are done, push play and you will move forward. This lecture will begin in 5 seconds. Welcome to World History 1 Lecture 2.3 on the effects of Mesopotamian civilization, and once again, let's step back for a second and see what we've learned. We learned that culture plus an urban environment equals civilization. That's pretty deep stuff. And then we went deeper and said civilizations have characteristics, things that make a civilization what it is, and effects, things that happen because a civilization developed. And then we said, hey, let's give you an example. Let's look at Mesopotamia, the first civilizations, Sumer and Babylon, and let's look at their characteristics. And the characteristic we focused on was a proper geographic setting. Remember that land between the two rivers thing? But we haven't talked about the most important part of civilization. That's the people. You see, people make history, and people develop civilizations. So today, we are going to start looking at the effects of civilization. How are people affected by the development of civilization? And for our purposes, we're going to look at 3 different effects: economic and technological developments, social and cultural developments, and political and historical developments. With that said, go to the next slide. Let's start with the economic and technological developments in Mesopotamian civilization, and it should surprise no one that Mesopotamia develops into an agriculturally based society. We've reached the end of the Neolithic Revolution. We have pretty much perfected farming up to this point, and now we are going to build a society around agriculture. So everything you're going to see in Mesopotamia from this point forward is based on an agriculturally based society. For example, we're going to use clay brick construction. That's basically digging clay out of the ground, forming it into bricks, and building buildings. And we're going to use this construction to build religious buildings like ziggurats and other buildings. That's an example of a ziggurat that I've put up for you. We're also going to have trade and commerce develop in the Fertile Crescent. We're going to be using the rivers. We have boats, and we're also going to be crossing on land. We've domesticated our animals. But to do this, we have to have one important invention. The wheel is invented to help move goods on land. Go to the next slide. The other economic and technological development in Mesopotamian civilization deals with organizing people. In other words, what jobs must people do in order to meet the needs of the civilization? You see, food surpluses allow for the development of specialization of labor. We now can have other jobs besides farming because everybody doesn't have to work in the field to feed the population. So we are going to have other jobs like scribes and artisans and merchants. But this specialization allows for the formation of a rigid class system. And all that is a division of people based on social and economic status of certain groups. So, for example, here's the Sumerian class system. You can see on the top are the priests. Those are the few people who basically run the civilization, saying what needs to happen according to the needs of the gods. Under them are the upper class. Those are the people who control the majority of the civilization. Under them are the lower or the working class. These are the people who are doing the jobs needed for civilization to move forward, like scribes and merchants and artisans. And then under them are slaves. Civilizations use captured people as slaves. They even cut the hair of slaves to show everyone the slaves captured status. The slaves are doing the really hard work that nobody else wants to do. You're going to see that slavery has been a part of human history since the start of civilization. Go to the next slide. Now remember that civilization is culture in an urban environment. So we're going to see some social and cultural developments in Mesopotamia. One such development is record keeping by scribes. No, not that type of record keeping. We're talking about records of daily life. Who was born when? How much grain was farmed? Who was sold what in trade? We need these records so that civilization can move forward on a daily basis. Well, you need to have writing to have records. So we are going to see the development of cuneiform writing in Sumer. Cuneiform is the world's first writing. There's an example right there. And if you're going to have writing, you can develop written stories. One such story is the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is probably one of the oldest narratives or oldest stories in history. Go to the next slide. The other major social and cultural development that comes from the Mesopotamians is religion. Mesopotamians develop a polytheistic based religion. Now, we're not going to study the religion of the Mesopotamians, but we need to understand this important point. Believers in a polytheistic religion hold the view that there are multiple gods, and they worship multiple gods. A great example of this is Greek mythology. Believers in a monotheistic religion believe there is only one God. And the three major Western religions that we will learn in this course, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, believers in those religions all are under the view that there is only one God. Go to the next slide. Lastly, let's talk about political and historical developments that come out of Mesopotamia. To do this, we need to look back into the Neolithic era. And at the end of the Neolithic era, we have these farming communities. Well, some of these farming communities develop into city-states like Sumer and Babylon. And these city-states control the surrounding countryside. They're not as big as nations, but they are bigger than individual communities. Sometimes these city-states develop into empires and kingdoms, like Babylonia. So Babylon was the city-state, and then Babylonia developed into the kingdom which controls this entire region. That's the Fertile Crescent. If you've gotten that big, you might be making civic works. These are works of historical importance, cultural importance, and one of the most important ones is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. You're also going to create a code of laws to govern your behavior. The original attempt at creating these codes of laws is called the Code of Hammurabi. It comes out of Babylonia. That's where we get the idea. An eye for an eye. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in class.